AFC champions, Cincinnati Bengals. Came into 2021. I was actually surprised by looking at this. So they came into 2021 with an expected win total of 7. That was actually pretty high. I ended up going 10-7, so well over the 7. 10-7 also. That's won a $100 unit bettor on the money line spread, over $500. Pythag had him at 10.5. Our Pythag 2.0 actually had him at 8.5. So actually much lower. Mean power rank about 18. 7-day power rank volatility was 6 spots. That's mostly attributable to obviously the market starting the season off very low on the Bengals and then taking them 9 weeks for them to finally kind of get up 20 spots.
There's a real kind of, I think, market adjustment after the Ravens game and immediately lost to the Jets, Mike White's Jets. And it's like everything we thought. We had like a 7-week case that was building of like, okay, maybe the Bengals are actually good. They lose to Mike White and the Jets, like downward trending. Then again, get crushed by the Browns. It was like, okay, this team isn't actually that good.
Yep.
And then it took a while to be like, okay, slowly, here come the Bengals.
You know, when we're looking at these types of charts, there's a lot to learn here around not getting caught in the moment in any specific week. Like, it's so easy to look at this and just see the future, see how it all played out, and you feel very comfortable with it.
Yeah, like spelling out the y-axis here is important. Like you can see, it looks like a pretty big jump. It's going from 11 to 18 in the span of 2 weeks. And that's a massive jump. And that's from a team we say, okay, this is like an above average to really to good team to no, they're actually below average.
Yeah, did it twice.
Yeah, no, they did it twice. And granted, some things changed over the course of the season, but I think you make a really excellent point, which is the Bengals are a prime example of the importance of kind of quantifying change over the course of the season, which is like are certain types of changes built in where you should maintain this long-term perspective. I think these podcasts are extremely helpful for understanding your own priors and your own perspective, and then evaluating mid-season and saying, okay, is this a good reason to jump off? Should I still be buying? Is it time to jump off? The new information come in where it's like, okay, my prior was wrong. And that's the most difficult part of being a bettor, but also the most profitable.
And I think we've seen this also time and time again as we're previewing these teams and looking back on 2021, is even some of the best teams are having these dud of games. And those on a standalone basis have proved actually to been more noise than signal, and was certainly not any reason for you to kind of reorient potentially your priors on them, or otherwise kind of reshape how you want to forecast them moving forward. And so we know offseason changes, again, something very well priced in. Everybody knows it. They meaningfully upgraded their offensive line, which was one of their key weaknesses last year. And as we saw at the beginning, when we were looking at the market kind of consensus offensive line rankings, they moved up dramatically, are now a top 15 unit. And so despite that, I feel like it's very torn on the way the market is kind of positioning on the Bengals.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that want to sell the Bengals, and we can kind of see their future win totals for a team that just went to the Super Bowl at 9.5. It's pretty low.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's like a contingency that's like, oh, they upgraded like the major weakness. They can only get better.
Yeah.
But then there's a lot of people that say, oh, they were never as good as they were last year, and they were just one of those teams that got hot at the right time, and they're actually much worse.
I think this is a great example of the different push and pulls from the market. No one thought they'd go to the Super Bowl. Okay, this team overachieved. They're going to come back down to earth. And this is something I don't think the market's pricing in at all, because it very rarely prices it in, is that what if Joe Burrow gets better?
Yeah.
Like, he's the number 1 overall pick. He got much better from year 1 to year 2. Players, especially young quarterbacks, get better from year 2 to year 3. That just happens. In the same way that no one priced in the possibility that, hey, maybe Joe Burrow would actually become a top 10 quarterback, and maybe we shouldn't be power ranking the Bengals at 29th to start the season. Could be saying the same thing from year 2 to year 3. What if he takes the next step? We've got elite receivers. T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd might be the league's best receiving unit. Defense is fine. They fixed their offensive line. Like, yes, they overachieved, but what if this offense is the best in the league? That wouldn't be unthinkable.
I think the fantasy market is definitely telling us that the Bengals could potentially be the most explosive offense in the NFL. And that's one thing that you and I have talked a lot about as well, is trying to source signal for betting from fantasy. I think the fantasy market is sharper than the betting market. The guys in fantasy, I feel, are just more intelligent, have like way more sophisticated ways of analyzing information, are way more comfortable with data than like the broader sports betting market. And I think, leveraging that source of information to kind of cross-pollinate different views.
Yeah, I think the market's almost building in an expectation that, as a general rule, explosive offenses are less stable year over year. We should be looking at something more like success rate if we're using an analytical statistic, because that's more stable year over year. We have an outlier here. Ja'Marr Chase and Joe Burrow are going to be better deep every year statistically. It's not going to regress to the mean because it's a specific skill. Joe Burrow is a very good deep thrower and he's very accurate, which means that he allows for good yards after the catch. And Ja'Marr Chase, so long as he stays healthy, is going to be elite after the catch. They're always going to be better explosive than other teams. That's not something that's going to regress, and I think the market's pricing that in. Like, we should build in some regression that this team is going to be less explosive. I don't think that's true. They're going to continue to be as explosive.
One thing that's necessary to call out, I don't hear it being cited as much for why you would be bearish on the Bengals, but it's Zach Taylor.
I was about to bring that up. That's the biggest question mark to me.
Going into last year especially, and even throughout the course of last season, it's like, how are they doing this? Because Zach Taylor is such a bad coach. And is he getting better? I don't know, but I know a consistent view that he was one of the worst, if not the worst coach in the NFL. Very young, one of the youngest coaches in the NFL as well. So maybe can allow for the possibility for growth in philosophy and approach, but it didn't necessarily demonstrate itself throughout the season. It was like they were winning in spite of Zach Taylor, not because of Zach Taylor.
I think it's that, like, it's a massive question mark. And that's why I'm not being like, I'm all in the Bengals Super Bowl. I think that Joe Burrow can be a top 5 quarterback with a very good offensive line and elite receivers. That's like recipe number 1 for me to jump all over a Super Bowl team. Like, possibility of elite quarterback, elite passing game. But just like, Zach Taylor's sort of wild card. I have no faith at all. And that's tempering me back from just like being all in on the Bengals.
Yeah, that's definitely the Achilles heel here for the Bengals. Because when you look at the Bengals potentially have the 6th hardest strength of schedule in 2022. And when you're thinking about the impact of coaching decisions, it's when there's a close game and there's a meaningful call that needs to be made that's going to dictate potentially the outcome. And maybe those things didn't pop up as much last year. I mean, the thing is, I wonder if this is a consequence of the Zach Taylor effect. We're looking at like max deficits. 1, 2, I'm going to call this 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games of double-digit deficits last year. So is that, again, you're not play calling the game properly, and then it's the miraculousness of Ja'Marr Chase and Joe Burrow. And
nothing stands out more than the Super Bowl on the last drive on 3rd down from the shotgun running Samaje Perine. And at the shotgun,
that's when it showed itself.
Exactly, in a close game when the team needed it most.
One of the things I also wanted to call out here is, and we'd see how it took really long time, I guess, maybe for traditional modelers or ELO modelers to really catch up to the Bengals. It looks like actually the betting market was much faster. So we see like they were a top 5, top 10 pick starting in week 5, and really from then on all the way through the end of the season. So the market was pretty quick to adjust to seeing value in the Bengals, something that I thought was pretty interesting. The close kind of, and looking at their schedule, I mean, it does look pretty tough.
But the spreads are notable there, right? They're not huge underdogs, which I think speaks to the value of how the market is seeing the Bengals.
This also has to be a record for Bengals, at least within our lifetimes, of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 prime time games. So national audiences are going to be getting a large dose of Bengals in 2022.